What is up, everybody? Back in our video today. I got my final mock draft of the year. I'll be taking some shots in this one. I'm really excited for this. The actual NFL draft is coming up in about 3 days here, right around the corner, and I'm really excited for it. I'm gonna try to watch every single pick. I'm sure I'm gonna miss some of it, obviously, because I'm not gonna be able to watch 250 plus picks. But hey, I'm really ready for this, and let's just start up this mock draft. Straight up, number 1, we're going Trevor Lawrence. He's already got the playbook. You don't really need to talk about that one too much. It's Trevor Lawrence. It would be the shock of the century, though, if he doesn't get taken there. Next up for the Jets, I am sticking with Zach Wilson. That's also another lock, in my opinion. I really think the draft is going to start here at number 3. I think Zach Wilson is clearly the second best quarterback in this draft class. And now let's move on to the number 3 pick, which is seemingly pretty highly controversial at the moment. By the way, this whole draft is not what I would personally do if I was the team. It's what I think will happen. And if I'm the 49ers, I would be taking Fields here. But I'm not the 49ers. So I want Mac Jones. He does have the highest floor out of the next few guys remaining between Fields and Lance. So I feel like that would be the reason why he's taken. Plus, he fits the typical Shanahan QB. So some of it makes sense, even though if I'm them, I would go more for a Fields because I like the upside of him a lot. And honestly, Fields' floor isn't too much lower than Mac Jones, but Mac Jones does make sense in that 49er system. Next up for the Falcons, I think this would be a pretty easy pick also. I can't see them going anywhere else other than the arguably top prospect in this draft class, Kyle Pitts. They're going to be an absolute juggernaut passing the ball as long as Matt Ryan looks like, the normal Matt Ryan, I guess you could say, and Calvin Ridley continues to progress, and then Julio Jones stays at the Julio Jones level. But Kyle Pitts is one of those amazing prospects that can be one of the best players at his position right away, and I'm really excited to see it happen. Next up for the Bengals, another pretty easy pick in my opinion. So there are two sides to this. Personally, I think they're taking Penei Sewell. There is an argument for sure for Jamar Chase because I know Joe Burrow is really begging for him, and that makes sense. It's a logical argument. Your future potential star quarterback really wants a guy. You got to put that guy in the back of your mind always. But I think they go with what they think is best for the team. I think Sewell is that because when you look at the Bengals, I think their wide receiver core isn't the absolute best, but I like their wide receiver core more than what their offensive line shows. And plus, in that second round, with the next Bengals pick, 1,000% take a wide receiver there. I think there's going to be a lot of solid wide receivers sitting around there. But next up with the Dolphins, I think that this one is going to be up in the air. There are some players kind of climbing up. Personally, I'm going to stick with Jamar Chase. I think he's definitely the favorite there if it all ends up going like what it is right now. I think Rashawn Slater is starting to come in the picture for them, which makes sense. Rashawn Slater is actually also coming in the picture for the Bengals, too. There's some experts that think he is the top offensive lineman. Personally, I disagree, but I think Rashawn Slater is seriously underrated. Next up, for the Lions, this is the toughest pick for me in this first round because I don't really know which way they're going to be swinging on this one. This is the one pick where I really don't know which way they would go. Personally, I'm going to stick with the QB. I think they'd go QB here. The other side to it would be maybe take the wide receiver and take a QB next year. But when you got a guy like Justin Fields just sitting here, I really think you should take him because I do think he'd be the number 1 quarterback in a lot of other drafts. And the fact that Goff, his deal is going to be expiring soon, and there's no way you're going to pay Goff. So maybe you get your quarterback for the future and then you build around him. Your wide receiver core definitely does need help, though. That's the big problem also. So we'll see what happens. I think they could definitely take a few wide receivers late in this draft. And if there was a pick that I would maybe change my mind on later, or maybe even tomorrow, is probably that Lions pick. But next up for the Panthers, I like this pick a lot. This is also kind of a harder one, but I'm going with Rashawn Slater. I don't think they go quarterback specifically because I don't think you trade for Sam Darnold and then still consider a quarterback unless a guy like Zach Wilson falls, but that's not going to happen. I think that's the only reason why I'd see them taking a quarterback. But I can't see it. You got Teddy Bridgewater, who you might have to trade, and then you got Sam Darnold now. And they invested a lot of trade capital in Sam Darnold, so it just doesn't make too much logical sense to take another QB. So you have 3 pretty decent QBs on your roster. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Next up for the Broncos, they're getting a great pick right here. I'm going Trey Lance. If I'm a Broncos fan, I'm ecstatic. I do think Drew Lock will be the quarterback for a few weeks because Trey Lance, in my opinion, is more of a guy that needs to develop for a little bit. I think he's going to be really good, though, in the future. He has arguably the best upside of any quarterback, and I think that can be very true. Next up for the Cowboys, we're going with a cornerback that has been really climbing mock drafts ever since the start of the season. I'm going J.C. Horn. The Patrick Surtain and Caleb Farley, hype has really fallen down, and J.C. Horn has really taken it over. A lot of people are rewatching his film, and he looks really, really good for South Carolina last year, and I really think the Cowboys still need cornerback. I'm not a big fan of the edge rushers, and obviously I'm not a big fan of the tight ends left here on the board, so I think J.C. Horn makes the most sense. Next up for the Giants, this was a pick that I'm not a fan of. I'm going to be going Christian Darrisaw. The biggest reason why I didn't take one of the top wide receivers or edge rushers is because I don't think their talent is specifically worth at this range over a Christian Darrisaw, and I think that they need tackle way, 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 way more than wide receiver and edge. But I think come draft day, if this is how the draft board's ending up, I do see them trading back a few spots, but obviously I'm not going to be doing trades in this, so that's why I didn't trade back. But yeah, I would have traded back if I was doing trades there. Next up for the Eagles, I'm going with Jalen Waddle. I think he's a little bit safer than Smith because of Smith's weight. I think Smith is really slipping because of it. I remember at some points when he was a top 3 projected pick, like maybe going to the Dolphins in a lot of mock drafts. But no, he's kind of slipping down to maybe a guy who's not even going to be in the top 10. I think he's still definitely a top 15 pick, and you'll see where I'm going to take him coming up soon. But I think Jalen Waddle is a safer pick, and I think the Eagles need to take safer wide receivers. I think they got to stop taking these risky ones. Next up for the Chargers, we're going with offensive line. They need to assess this like crazy. Finished 32nd, dead last in the NFL last year in PFF grades. You did add a really good offensive lineman in Corey Lindsey, a All-Pro, but that's not going to change at all for you. You need more than that, and I think you got to add a young guy, and I'm adding Elijah Vera-Tucker right here. I think that makes a lot of sense. And then that kind of screws the Vikings because because after Elijah Vera-Tucker, to me, the offensive linemen drop off, and if I'm the Vikings, I'm not going to be taking an edge rusher here. So I'm sticking with offensive line. I am going to go Tevin Jenkins, who is a ranked late first round guy. So if I'm the Vikings here, I'd probably trade back also. But again, I'm not doing trades. This is really the most realistic player I would see them taking. If I'm personally the Vikings there, I would 1,000% have taken a risk on Jalen Phillips, who can be a top 5 prospect if he's fully healthy, but he's just not very healthy. And I think they're going to kind of avoid him because of that. But if I were the Vikings, I would have taken Jalen Phillips, yeah. But next up, for the Patriots, Devonta Smith's fall will end. I usually have him taking Bateman around here. This is the farthest I've ever had Smith fall. I really think some of the hype of him's just fallen off. And I mean, obviously, once you're put on an NFL team and on an NFL roster and doing NFL things, you're gonna gain weight. But I'm not too confident that he's extremely committed because everyone knows that's the thing about him. Like, if he can add 15, 20 pounds, holy cow, I'm taking him the top 10 picks every single mock draft. Like, that's the biggest thing. My worry is that cornerbacks are going to easily press him at the line. He's not going to be able to get off every time, even though he's got insane speed. I think he's going to burn a lot of people, and he's pretty agile. It didn't really affect him too much in college, but the NFL is a completely different game, obviously. So we'll see how it goes. I'm a little higher on him than most people because a lot of people completely tear him down for his weight, but I got hope still. Next up for the Cardinals, we're having Patrick Surtain go, the somewhat falling cornerback. This is only 3 picks below his ADP, though, so, I mean, not too much of a fall. But, hey, if I'm the Cardinals, holy cow, I would feel like I just got a massive steal because I think he definitely could have gone number 10 to the Cowboys. And this Cardinals defense is looking pretty legit now. You added J.J. Watt in the offseason. Now you got Patrick Surtain and some other pieces you also added. Like, this is becoming a lot better, and this is a legit playoff team in my opinion. Next up for the Raiders, we're going to go back-to-back cornerbacks. I'm going to go with Caleb Farley, the more injury-prone cornerback. Personally, I think the talent's really there, and I think the Raiders got to take a risk on somebody like that. I think he's going to be a little more healthy than people expect. Like, if the injuries don't bother him to an extent, he's going to be an absolutely phenomenal cornerback in this league. And that would just tremendously help out the Raiders, especially here because he was another guy that was looking to go top 10 in the draft even a few months ago. And, the injuries just kind of took him out. Next up for the Dolphins, I am going to go Micah Parsons. I think this is a talent pick right here. It's not the biggest need. Barmore's intriguing, but I really like the Parsons pick. You released one of your top linebacker in the offseason, if not your second best linebacker. So I feel like Micah Parsons makes a lot of sense, even though it's not the biggest need. And obviously, if you want to build a championship team in the NFL, you need needs. But Micah Parsons, he's not your general linebacker. He's going to rush the QB a lot, and he's going to get a lot of sacks. So I feel like he can kind of bring that sacking aspect while playing in coverage pretty well. So we'll see what happens with him, but I think that's a good pick. Next up, for the football team now, Washington football team, we'll see if they change their name or not. I've been doing Rashad Bateman a lot with them. I think he's extremely underrated. As you can see, PFF has him ranked as the 17th prospect, so they're pretty high on him. I'm pretty high on him also. And yeah, I think the football team, you got a really solid wide receiver core right now. Your defense looks phenomenal. Your QB room is but there's just really no QBs here. I remember at the beginning of all these mock drafts a few months ago, Mac Jones would be falling down to this range. I would be taking Mac Jones ASAP with this pick, but now I'm going to stick with Rashad Bateman because obviously Mac Jones all of a sudden goes from a 20 late first rounder to a top 3 pick. Like, that's just how crazy these NFL rumors, can change everything. But next up for the Bears, I'm taking another reach here. I think they need to assess that offensive line tremendously bad. I don't think wide receiver is a massive priority. I don't think cornerback is a massive priority over offensive line. Plus the fact that you have Andy Dalton back there playing QB, I think you need even more help for him. So we're going to go with Walker Little. Personally, I would not do that, but it's not what I think. It's not what I want to do. It's what I think they're going to do. Next up for the Colts, we're taking edge rusher Kwity Paye. This team is looking to be another juggernaut defensively. You added Carson Wentz in the offseason, and you re-signed T.Y. Hilton. I don't think you really attack that offense right now. The offense looks fine to me. You're going to actually have a full year now of Jonathan Taylor. They took way too long to play Jonathan Taylor, in my opinion. I don't know what took him so long. So let's see what happens with that. And I think he's going to be a possibly even top 10 running back this next season, Jonathan Taylor. A lot of people are ranking him there, and I think that makes a lot of sense. Next up for the Titans, we're going cornerback. We're going to go Greg Newsome Jr. They definitely need some more defensive help still. As long as you have Tannehill, Brown, and Derrick Henry on the offense and, a decent O-line around them, you're going to be pretty dang good offensively. But, yeah, you still need to assess that defense. And this is another team that's really going to want to try their best to compete in the AFC. And, I don't know how much time you'll have left to do that because, Tannehill, he's getting a little older. Henry's getting a little older because a lot of those teams in the AFC that are competing for the championship right now are extremely young, especially with their best players like Lamar Jackson, he's really young. Patrick Mahomes, he's really young. Josh Allen, he's really young. So we'll see if they can compete with them this year again. Next up, with the Jets, I have them taking Jalen Phillips. I feel like they go with more of a risk-oriented pick. Should I typed in his name wrong? But this is an organization that makes more it makes sense for them to take more of a risk here, based off the fact that you need the talent desperately, and if Jalen Phillips' talent turns out and he doesn't have a completely injury-prone career, this is going to be one of the biggest steals of the draft. And if I was a Jets fan, I'd be pretty excited about that. Personally, I'm just going to be extremely excited about that Zach Wilson pick. But hey, bring in Jalen Phillips also. Next up for the Steelers, we're going to attack the offensive line. I hear a lot of Najee Harris stuff. And personally, I don't think you take running backs too heavily at this point in the draft. I think you got to wait. I think Najee Harris could be there in the second round. So we'll see what happens with that. But I'm taking Cosme right now. I think he can be looked at as a first-round tackle. He's more of a early second, in my opinion, but I think he'll be taken in the first round. Next up for the Jags, we're going with the safety, Trayvon Morg. This is a fit pick. This is not a full talent pick. If it was, I probably would have gone Barmore because he's really fallen down in the rankings here. But hey, the Browns are going to get him right here, actually. Browns, they're looking really good. They're another team that I forgot to mention about the young. Sorry, I apologize to the Browns. I forgot to mention them in Baker Mayfield, and they're a pretty young team also. They're really looking I really like this Browns team coming up next year, especially hopefully a full year of Odell Beckham Jr. I think this team is definitely a contender in the AFC. I wouldn't put them as a favorite, but hey, they almost beat the Chiefs last year. I think they had some plays go their way that should have been changed, but I think this team is a serious contender in the AFC, and if you add more talent like Barmore, you're going to get even better. Next up for the Ravens, I have them finally taking a first-round wide receiver in Terrence Marshall Jr. I want to see Terrence Marshall Jr. mocked more in the first round. I think he's a first-round wide receiver. If I'm the Packers and he's still on the board, I would have taken him there. If you guys don't know, I'm a Packers fan also. So personally, I would love to take Terrence Marshall Jr. if he's available at 29. No way would I pass on him there. But hey, if there's other picks, I'm fine with it. There's a few more people here in the prospect rankings that I would maybe take over him. But Terrence Marshall Jr. finally get another weapon for Lamar Jackson. That team is kind of dipping offensively. You just traded Orlando Brown Jr. also, so that offensive line is going to be weaker. So that talent is, kind of dipping off on the offensive side. We'll see if Lamar Jackson can play better this season, and hopefully they can get in our playoff win because they actually, beat the Titans last year in round one, which is nice to see. So I'll see if they can get in our playoff win, or maybe even two next year. Next up for the Saints, a team that somehow got out of their cap situation. They're going to take Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. They need a linebacker, in my opinion. Again, on the offensive side, they're completely fine. Obviously, quarterback's an issue. I do think Jameis Winston can be a legit QB. We'll see if he has the same turnover issues. We'll see if he forces passes like he did with the Bucs. But hey, when he was making passes, he's a 30-plus touchdown guy with over 4,000, maybe even, he had 5,000 yards that one year. So just eliminate the dumb decisions, and that dude could be a legit quarterback for the Saints. Next up for the Packers, we're going with the cornerback Asante Samuel Jr. They did pick up Kevin King on the offseason, which personally I wasn't the biggest fan of, but hey, it's a low-risk $1 million deal. I personally don't think he'll re-sign after that unless he has an absolute stud of a season. And I think Asante Samuel Jr. will fully take over, so you're going to draft his replacement. And I think Asante Samuel Jr. will play, somewhat of a role this season, obviously, because I don't see Kevin King playing all of the games. But next up for the Bills, the third last pick of this draft, we're going with Jason Ohe. They definitely need to add to the defense still. Again, on our team where I love the offensive side of the ball, just got to keep developing and getting better, and hopefully don't lose any pieces because that Stephon Diggs, Josh Allen duo is just phenomenal, and I could see Josh Allen winning an MVP next year. So we'll see what happens there, but continue to add to that defense, and let's go right on to the Ravens. So the Ravens traded this pick with the Chiefs. I thought it was a fine deal. I mean, of course, you don't want to lose a tackle like Orlando Brown Jr., but I did not think that he was going to come back to this team in the offseason, so you kind of had to get rid of him. So with this pick, we are going to take Azeez Elijah-Ari, so now you're attacking the defensive side more. I'm cool with this pick. I would take him here too, probably. Of course, I would like to look at the offensive side a little more, but hey, I would attack that offensive side in the next few rounds. And with the last pick of this draft, and then we'll look at the grades after, I'm going with kind of a shot here. It's not an absolute need, but I'm going to go with Elijah Moore. I don't really like the defensive lineman after this, and Elijah Moore is one of those guys where you kind of look at him, you see, hey, maybe Tom Brady can turn this guy into a Hall of Fame wide receiver. But hey, you can do a lot of people. Look at these first 4 picks. Love the PFF grades they gave me, and watch the PFF grades just like dip off after this. A- somehow for Sewell. Justin Fields is an A+. Rashawn Slater is an FA. Maybe they want me to trade back in that scenario. Yeah, I understand the Darisaw grade. A lot of these grades are lower because I probably could have traded back for those players, and that's what I would have done if I was doing trades, but I wasn't doing trades for this mock draft, unfortunately. Surtain, A+. I mean, pretty good grades. Walker Little, I was expecting a D there also. I would have traded back in that scenario also. A few A+ and a bunch of A's, so yeah, I'll look at that overall for the Panthers. That's the last mock draft. I'm gonna probably putting out my draft reactions, hopefully on the night of the draft. We'll see how late that goes, and if I'm gonna be wanting to put out like a 20-minute video then, because I'm probably gonna be breaking down every pick on my thoughts on it in the first round at least, and maybe we go second round or third round also. Probably not. I'll definitely try to attack the first round though, whether if it's the night of the draft or the day after the draft. So we'll see how that goes. But thank you guys so much for watching, especially the absolute legends that are somehow still listening right now, because, hey, it's a long video. So, hey, we'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you guys so much for listening. Peace.